Kimberly Guilfoyle along with Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. A lot of breaking developments today on the sexual misconduct scandals rocking the country. Charlie Rose has been fired by CBS and PBS, and multiple allegations of harassment by former staffers have been made. Meanwhile, the longest-serving member of the House is now under scrutiny. Michigan Congressman John Conyers admits to settling a harassment complaint against him in 2015, but denies the allegations were true. Al Franken keeping a low profile after a second woman comes forward with groping allegations. And then there was this. President Trump commenting publicly earlier about Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore. He's not calling for him to drop out of the race.
I can tell you one thing for sure. We don't need a liberal person in there, a Democrat. Jones, I've looked at his record. It's terrible on crime. He denies it. Look, he denies it. I mean, if you look at what is really going on and you look at all the things that have happened over the last 48 hours, he totally denies it.
Are you going to campaign for Roy Moore?
I'll be letting you know next week, but I can tell you, you don't need somebody who's soft on crime like Jones. Roy Moore denies it. That's all I can say. He denies it. Women are very special. I think it's a very special time because a lot of things are coming out, and I think that's good for our society, and I think it's very, very good for women. And I'm very happy a lot of these things are coming out, and I'm very happy it's being exposed.
Should Al Franken resign now?
I don't know. Look, I don't want to speak for Al Franken. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I just heard about Conyers 2 minutes ago. As far as Franken's concerned, he's going to have to speak for himself.
Okay, so the president making a public comment on this now, saying that Roy Moore, Greg, denies the allegations. So he is not, I guess, also sharing the sentiment that his daughter, Ivanka Trump, which is being used in a campaign ad now against Roy Moore by his opponent.
I don't know where to start.
In the beginning.
Well, yeah, in the beginning, there was Charlie Rose. He's clearly the oldest. The fact that the whole thing with Charlie Rose is so strange that he would like force coworkers or young people to view him naked, like he would walk around the apartment naked. And now we as Americans have to see that in our head as well. And all I can see is one of those hairless cats on hind legs smoking a pipe.
All right, I'm really glad I went to you.
No, but you shouldn't have gone to me because the thing is, all this stuff is happening so fast, and there's all these different types, and we're not prioritizing which is which. And this guy had 5 luxury homes. How did he worked for public broadcasting? Did our taxes pay for this guy's life?
You're saying that's the real scandal?
No, I think the whole thing is just so bad. And then you got this other, everything that he's got Franken. It's like people act like this stuff with Franken is new. All you got to do is go on YouTube, look up Howard Stern's interview with him in 1999, and you'll find other people. This was not a secret. He talked about it.
All right, well, that's a good point. So, Dana, where do we go from here? And what did you think of the president's messaging on this, that he did finally make a statement, but he didn't go so far as to say he was going to campaign for Roy Moore, said he denied the allegations, he would get back to everybody next week as to whether or not he'd be campaigning for him.
I think he all but said he's going to campaign for him. He's like, I'll get back to you next week. What's he going to do now? Like,
unless
you've already crossed the threshold. I mean, at this point, you're basically saying, I'm good, no problem. Well, for me, hard pass. I also think it's a heck of an argument to be leaving when you're right on the cusp of having tax reform done before the election, before Roy Moore's even voted on. You actually have the chance to get tax reform done without him regardless, and you actually have really good messaging. And you have members of Congress all talking on the same wavelength. Everybody's working hard in your favor. And we're in the middle of this society-altering hurricane. And he didn't need to step into the middle of it today. But he did, and now there's no going back. And I hope that he will give people a pass, because every single Republican is going to be asked, do you agree with President Trump on Roy Moore? And they're going to have to make their own decisions. And if they say no, I hope he will understand that that is just going to have to be the way it is. It's not personal, but this is a decision that they made. The RNC has already walked away from him. There's no money. So now all of a sudden, and then the president is saying, like, well, yeah, maybe I'll go and campaign for him. I think that this is something that he actually didn't need to do, but now that having done it, there will be consequences for it. It doesn't mean that Roy Moore won't win. It's likely that he could win in Alabama. And the thing is also, on Doug Jones, his opponent, I don't accept that he is weak on crime. I would say that the stronger argument for a lot of people in Alabama is that he is very pro-choice. And so if you care about reproductive rights, you would probably want to go ahead and vote for Doug Jones. But if you are a pro-life person, and there are many of them in Alabama, then Roy Moore would be your choice, because if you are a single-issue voter, I think it is that. I don't think it's necessarily crime, given Doug Jones's background.
So you might have picked a different tact, because the president's been saying,
I definitely think
Jones is bad on crime.
if you want to run against Doug Jones and you want to figure out like the issue to focus on, maybe their message testing tells him it's crime, but his background doesn't back that up, given all that he's done as a former U.S. attorney, prosecuting racists in particular. But I do expect that President Trump will go a campaign for him, and we'll just have to see where it leads.
See what happens. All right, Jesse, what do you make of the president's statement?
Pretty stunning developments. This guy went from extremely toxic 2 weeks ago, more, to now slightly less toxic, to the point where the president of the United States is kind of keeping him at arm's length a little bit, not fully endorsing him, but not endorsing him at all. Very surprising. It looks like it's a free-for-all now, because like Dana said, the RNC's here, but he's still raising money independent of the RNC, and the prediction markets are actually predicting that Roy Moore does win. And the lesson, if you listen to what the president said, is if you deny the allegations, you get the benefit of the doubt in politics. That's a strange barometer. I think going forward, it's very different in politics versus the private sector. In the private sector, the mere accusation, goodbye.
Fired.
In politics, you either get sent to an ethics committee, you know, maybe you pull an endorsement, but the guy will still be alive. Right now, it comes down to pure, raw power politics. Do we want to keep the Senate majority, the Republicans are thinking, or do we want to take the moral high ground and, you know, maybe save face and fight for another day? And that's the calculation all these Republicans have to make by themselves.
Interesting. Okay, so Juan, were you surprised by the president's, comments, and where do you come down on this?
Well, Kimberly, I was surprised on several levels.
Okay.
One is just on a human level. I mean, if it's my daughter, 14 years old, I mean, come on, that's not politics. I mean, let's do away with the tribal political thing here. Oh, I'm a Republican, I got to back this guy because of abortion, right? Wait a minute. You're an evangelical in Alabama is going to support a candidate who is supposedly messing around with a 14-year-old. I mean, and
but
then
they don't believe the women.
I don't care. I mean, there was one of the women who was on TV, went on the Today Show. It's not like people are hiding
No, I'm
or
not saying
not
I
giving
don't
their
believe that.
names.
I'm saying
Savannah Guthrie.
I mean, you have people saying, you know what? These are credible charges, serious charges. I believe that you have the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell saying, I believe the women. That's a serious step. You know, Jesse was talking about the political calculation and all that. But at some level, you got to stop and say, wait a minute, I'm a human being, a 14-year-old or young women, or he says, yeah, generally. Remember, he went on Sean Hannity. Generally, I didn't mess around with younger girls. What is going on when people can't see something so obvious sitting in front of them? It's alarming to me. But let me just, pick up in general. I think the president then, this is the way I felt when he tweeted about Al Franken. On a political level, why is he doing that? Because it opens the door to charges about him and questions about his past behavior. Greg said, you just have to go back and listen to Franken on Howard Stern. Go back and listen to Donald Trump on Howard Stern. I mean, and you've got...
1999.
I guess you have.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got these cases sitting there now. And so everybody's going to go back and say, well, wait a minute, Donald Trump now is some sort of authority. He has no moral authority on this issue.
Yeah, but the difference, I guess, when Franken was on Stern, I mean, they talked about the things that he did,
right.
and it's pretty interesting. He had problems trying to defend it, and it's just sitting there.
Yeah, but I'm saying so is Trump stuff sitting there. And nobody, for the moment, people are like, let it go. Now, the big Republican argument has been, well, the American people elected him.
Yeah.
So I guess it was litigated. Well, actually, it hasn't been litigated. Nobody has sat down and gone through it. But now you are, because I think there's like a dozen plus women who have charges against the president. One final point. This is really about Republican infighting. Steve Bannon has stayed by Judge Moore's side. Kay Ivey, the governor, the Alabama Republican Party, stayed by his side. I find this bizarre, but it's true. The National Republican Party understands this will be opprobrium that will be hung around their necks for all time. And they understand how it's going to be damaging to them and to their brand.
Dan, I want to get, we don't have time to run the sound of it, but, you know, let's talk about kind of the reaction, what you thought of the women of SNL that came out to support Al Franken in light of these groping allegations.
Well, I have mixed feelings about that. If they weren't coerced into signing their names onto something or intimidated into signing their names on something, or if, let's say that you didn't sign it and then you were intimidated that way, I'm not for that.
Right.
At all. I don't think that's right. And I also am concerned, like, this idea that if you deny it, then you're going to be fine. Conyers just did the same. And then they're like, well, wait, what about that? There is actually a settlement. It's like, oh, that settlement. Right. Okay. So, oh, right. That's what you're talking about. So if you're a woman who feels like you have been wronged and something bad happened to you, why would you come forward? Because if you know that the man is going to deny it and they're going to be fine and your reputation is the one that's going to suffer, like, I don't like any of this, but I also go back to that this is truly a society-altering event. We joked this morning and we're talking about, like, I kind of joked, but putting together the show for this afternoon. Mid-morning, we're like, well, what are we going to lead with? And I said, well, wait till this afternoon and there will be something bigger. There, sure enough, there's another person from Disney who is stepping down amidst allegations. So I don't know if we need a new definition of what actual harassment is. I think it's interesting that so many companies are waiting until the news story they know is coming before they actually do something. But I hope that for the women that have decided to come forward with true allegations, that they feel that they can get some restitution. And I don't mean reparations necessarily, but something that will quiet their minds so that they can move on with their lives in a healthier way and not have to have this hanging over them. Like, a lot of these people, if they are victimized, they carry it through their lives
the whole time.
And you see it over and over again with people who have been victimized that end up having problems later on because they didn't deal with it then. Hopefully, there's enough companies out there, including the Congress, that needs to change its laws so that you don't have to wait 180 days, so you can actually have a secret mediation and then maybe not get any restitution for another 30 days, and then another 30 days when you could do it. By that time, you might as well quit and move on, or you get fired, which is what happened to the young woman that worked for Charlie Rose.
All right. I see you guys. Quick comments?
Well, I mean, you know, we talk about victims and we talk about this in a very broad way, but if we don't have a systematic assessment of accusation, then the spectrum from a bad joke at a bar or a clumsy pass to all-out assault becomes part of this whole world, which does not fairly benefit the victim of serious stuff, who is then lumped together with the victim of somebody who makes a crass joke. So it doesn't benefit the victim or the accused. Categories are important because, as piggish as Al Franken is, he's not Weinstein, and as stupid and creepy as Glenn Thrush is, he's no James Toback. And we have to somehow slow it down, separate the accusations, maybe allow for a defense, you know, maybe, why not? And then address the capacity for change. If somebody says that that's the way they were and they're not that way anymore, you know, we talk about a forgiving society. The media isn't. The media will eat their own for a story.
And they are.
And they are.
And Greg brings up a great point. It's the issue when you say a call for a defense, but for, you know, due process, to have some kind of adjudication or some kind of understanding of the merits and what's true and what isn't, because it's very different when I see it, you know, juxtaposed to, like, the court of law. You actually get a trial, you know, and by a jury by your peers. You get to be able to put on a defense and you get to be able to do a proper, you know, investigation.
And that's what makes it so difficult, because it's not in the legal system. It's a he said, she said, because a lot of this happens alone, one-on-one. And the only lesson I can think of just off the top of my head when you said, what do we learn from this? Where do we go forward? If you're a woman and you feel like you have been inappropriately touched or groped, or you feel sexually harassed or abused in any way, in any setting, you immediately have to come forward and tell someone. Tell a girlfriend, tell a boyfriend,
make a fresh
tell
complaint.
a superior, make a complaint with HR, because to not say anything and let weeks and months and years pass by, that everybody's memory goes haywire. People don't believe you as much. And then when it comes out of the blue, people question the timing. And there's no way to corroborate anything. So I would just, that'd be my advice to people.
But
Yeah,
I
but
think
it's
that
not that
people-
easy sometimes, right?
Right,
Ron?
and I
Because you
understand
have to
why
be
people don't come
courageous.
forward
Okay.
immediately.
Ron,
Well, I
good
know we got to
comment,
go, but
Ron?
I'm just saying, I think people in the Charlie Rose case did go to the supervisor, and now she says she wished she had done a better job of speaking up for these young women. And in the Trump case, women said they went right away and said something, and Trump has, by his own language, said he was grabbing women, and if there's a good-looking woman, you just run up and kill. I mean, this is his own language.
We won't repeat it. All right. Good discussion. A new setback for President Trump and his crackdown on sanctuary cities. That's next. Stay with us.
He's got the red, white, blue, flying high on the farm. Semper Fi tattooed on his left arm. Spend a little more in the store for a tag. In the back it says USA. He won't buy nothing and he can't even bait a hook. He can't even skin a bug.
Days after taking office, President Trump signed an executive order to cut funding from sanctuary jurisdictions in America, places that provide safe haven for illegal immigrants. Well, a federal judge has just permanently blocked that order. U.S. District Court Judge William Orrick of California ruled the White House does not have the authority to impose new conditions on spending already approved by Congress. The administration fired back, saying the court exceeded its authority, and the Justice Department will vindicate the president's lawful authority to direct the executive branch on this matter. So here we go again on sanctuary cities, Kimberly. I guess the Justice Department is saying that they will appeal this ruling and see if they can get to a better resolution. But, it's highly predictive in these cases, especially on sanctuary cities or immigration, that it's based on party line vote. And since this is in California, it's not a surprise to you.
No, it's not a surprise. I mean, I know Judge Orrick is a very bright man, but, you know, nevertheless, he's very solidly, decidedly, proactively in the liberal lane, okay? So he's a big Democratic supporter. He's a huge fundraising supporter for President Barack Obama. So it's no surprise here. And also with the Ninth Circuit, you know, this is the way they rule. They're not going to be in anything in favor of what President Trump is doing, especially as it relates to sanctuary cities or illegal immigration. He raised like $200,000 in contributions for the Obama campaign. It's not his first time. He did it in 2004, too. He raised money for John Kerry. He's very involved with those groups and with PACs and fundraising. So, you know, I think in this case, we're just going to have to wait for it to go up on appeal, to be honest. This is sort of pro forma what you expect at this point.
He was saying, Juan, that on the merits that the president doesn't have a right to deny a city funds when it was Congress's intent that they get those funds. So isn't the real answer here not just waiting for a Supreme Court decision, but actually getting Congress to pass a different law if that's what they want?
That's exactly right. So if Congress wants to pass a different law, they can. And let's just deal with the substance here, because if we start looking at the federal judiciary as basically controlled by partisan politics, gee, you'd have a lot to say about Neil Gorsuch, even John Roberts, certainly, you know, Scalia and the like. I just don't look at it that way. I think these people have some integrity, and the idea is that this had been on injunction, again, blocked by injunction, this time now confirmed by the ruling by Judge Orrick. I mean, the larger point here is that President Trump now goes to the Justice Department as if he is, you know, the king, and says, oh, yeah, this is what I want. Doesn't matter what the Congress wants. This doesn't matter what the courts say. Doesn't matter that we have checks and balances and the courts are exercising some restraint here. I want this. This is what we're going to do.
But it could get a little messy, though, Jesse, because the president has the right to protect the country. And he's saying that from a policy perspective, he doesn't believe that if the sanctuary cities are not complying with the federal law, that they shouldn't get the money, regardless of congressional intent. And this is all happening while we have closing arguments in the Kate Steinle case, which I know you've covered.
I have, yes. So, you know, national security argument, bring that up in front of the Supreme Court. Or if you just want to kick it back to Congress, they have the power of the purse to deny the funding. That's fine. I'm just going to pre-butt Juan because I know he's going to run garbage about sanctuary cities. They did a study at a liberal institution out in California. Crime is higher in sanctuary cities. Marginally, not a lot higher. Marginally.
You get out of
marginally.
town.
Yeah, it's
You
like
are
5%
so wrong.
higher.
You
Also,
are-
I'll cite it for you. I'll cite it again. And in Phoenix, when they got rid of their sanctuary city policies, violent crime and property crime dropped dramatically. And yes, we're following the Kate Steinle case very closely, and I believe it's now in the hands of the jurors.
Yeah.
So this could
Waiting
come
for
at
that.
any day.
Yeah, maybe by early next week, probably. Gutfeld, anything on sanctuary cities or?
Absolutely not.
Okay. What's
No. Imagine if a judge blocked an order to enforce a gun law. Like there was a gun law, and he says, nah, we're going to allow people to violate that gun law, whether it's like using bump stocks, automatic weapons, whatever. The left, their brains would fry like, you know, sunny side up eggs. I don't know. But a sanctuary city exists on the backs of the Border Patrol. So the Border Patrols risk their lives to keep the villains out. So if they weren't there, sanctuary cities would be a hell pit. No Border Patrol, no sanctuary city. It's like if you don't have a lock on your front door, then all the other doors must be locked. So they basically, sanctuary cities and their backers, mooch off the lives and the deaths of law enforcement.
Let me ask you a question. Why we do have the Supreme Court rule that you have gun rights confirmed or affirmed Second Amendment rights in this country. So what are you saying?
I'm just saying, imagine a judge saying a gun control law, a law that says you can't have this. But a judge says, sanctuary city, you can walk around with you know.
Well, it did happen with gay marriage. Roy Moore in Alabama refused to enforce federal law when it came to gay marriage, and he was run out of there.
Yeah, you're.
So wait a second, Juan. Are you saying you support Judge Roy Moore's?
How is that? What are you?
It's the same thing because locally, that's what these precincts are doing. They don't want to get involved with the feds.
Precincts?
San Francisco.
You know,
it's a very great analogy.
You know,
One went right over your head.
The last
Jesse's
time
so proud of
This
himself.
is why I tell you,
once in a
don't
while I
party.
come up with a good idea.
Don't party with Gutfeld. Those psychedelics are affecting you.
You would know.
Wow, Juan with the flash forward. Make sure to watch Thanksgiving show. Ahead, Newsweek attempts to get attention by comparing President Trump to killer Charles Manson. It worked. The backlash next.
We're doing it.
Lose my mind. You make me crazy.
Remember getting Newsweek as a child? I looked forward to it. I believe that Newsweek made me a smarter kid. It was like highlights with war. Now the magazine just makes you dumber. Once a noted publication, it's now a thinly pressed carcass of mind vomit. Their latest, an article by Melissa Matthews called How Murderer Charles Manson and Donald Trump Used Language to Gain Followers. Hold on. Isn't that what Newsweek does? Use language to gain followers? Isn't that what Melissa Matthews does? Isn't that what the New York Times does? Isn't that what we all do? Does that make Newsweek like Manson? Imagine how this story came about. A group of young editors, close to my age, early 30s, they're sitting around. They're hoping for any idea to take a naked Charlie Rose off their minds. He's like a hairless cat on his hind legs, smoking a pipe. Now, they know they're one paycheck away from opening a cat-sitting business in Brooklyn. Finally, a cretin says, let's compare Manson to Trump. Relieved, they break for lunch. Vegan wraps and green tea all around. Good for them, I say. If you want people to click on your free webzine, which is what Newsweek is, saying Trump is Manson beats all comers. Although in the article, even they admit that Trump really isn't Manson. They didn't buy it either, and they didn't expect you to buy that either, too. That's why it's free. So Newsweek is now like the saddest sideshow attraction. The sign reads, see the caterpillar man, and it's just a junkie in a sleeping bag. Fact is, even they know they're peddling tripe, but an editor's gotta eat. They don't have the words, but they do have Manson.
So weird.
It is weird, Dana. Jump in on this,
Well, because
please.
it's more. I loved Newsweek too growing up, and this sounds more like a PhD dissertation.
Yes.
Than an actual news article, right? And thank you. You can thank me when you get your PhD that I gave you that idea. But they say that they didn't have specifics on what Manson may have told followers, but argued it was probably similar to the rhetoric that other cult leaders have used, or maybe it's actually just what people use to try to get them to follow them. Like President Obama appealed to people's emotions.
Are you comparing Obama to Manson, Dana?
Yes, I am.
Oh, my God.
How's that, America?
It was only a matter of time.
It's contagious.
Stole my thunder. I had it written right here.
Yes. But it's true, Jesse. You can apply this to anybody, any leader, any TV personality like myself, who's quite persuasive and influential.
That's right. Any politician is guilty of being charismatic and preying on people's emotions.
Yeah.
They do this with all Republicans, though. They've compared Trump with Hitler, to ISIS, to O.J. Simpson. This was lazy clickbait. It's a smear. You go to your editor and you say, I have a Republican, and we're going to link him to something evil. And the editor says, all right, give me 3 paragraphs. Done deal. You could do it with Hillary. Easily. Hillary, she's Teflon. She gets away with everything. O.J. is like Hillary. See how easy that was? Does that get me into Newsweek, though? No, because it's not liberal Democrat.
Webzine.
Juan, what happened to Newsweek? I love that magazine.
I did too.
I knew that it was trying very hard to beat Time because Time was always like more successful. But I always liked the little brother
true.
that Newsweek was always the little brother to Time.
underdog.
And then there was the creepy U.S. News and World Report that you didn't know what it was. It was like the real boring version of. It was like the boring third brother. It was Jan Brady.
Terrible graphics.
It's Jan Brady. Greg Brady was Time, and Peter was Newsweek. Explain my thoughts.
Wow.
Well, you could just have like best colleges in the universe, right?
Yes.
And that's become U.S.
Yes,
News.
that was
right?
good.
But Newsweek, I don't know what's going on there. But I will say this. I mean, you guys just basically break it down as partisan attack on President Trump. And actually, I thought it's interesting. Here they are saying charismatic language. And Trump's use of language, by the way, is interesting. He speaks in very emotive terms. He uses very
True.
simple words.
Very true.
Make America Great Again would be a prime example. Lock her
Build a
up.
wall.
Right. Very simple,
But
direct
how's that
language.
different than hope and change?
Then what?
That's like hope and change.
No. But that's not the heart and soul of an Obama speech. It's not the soul of
Obama's
anybody
boring.
else's speech.
Remember how boring his speeches
Well,
were?
no, I think
Not to
Obama's
Juan.
a fine speaker, but I don't think he's a great speaker. I think he's a fine speaker. But
Trump
this
is the greatest
specific
speaker
use
ever.
of language, no, by not. But I must
Jesse.
say, remember his demographic. You know what? A lot of people who didn't graduate from college, and I think
Oh
it works
my
very
goodness.
well.
That's
You could
very.
say that about
Prison, stupid.
President
No,
Obama,
no,
couldn't
no.
you?
I love the poorly educated. Is that
That's what Trump
I
said.
know, but that's
Kimberly?
very insulting. That is
That's
not
not
true.
insulting.
Oh, okay.
The guy
That's all
works.
we voted
The
for.
guy's
That's
use
just
of
not true.
language is fantastic. It has made him president of the United States. That's an
Well,
honor.
it's made
Kimberly,
him a
would
very
you
successful American entrepreneur as well. I
Right.
mean, it's people who are.
So he
sounds
speaks
like
in
people
that
are
way.
just jealous that he's been able to connect with people, and he hasn't been, trapped by worrying about being politically correct. He's found an audience out there, and it resonates. And I think it's across multiple demographics. I
Well,
wouldn't
so that's
say
what
that
the
it's just
article
one.
said, Kimberly, is that he's charismatic, but he
Right.
gets people to accept an ideology regardless of whether, and here I'm quoting, destructive or dangerous. That's
Okay,
all
well,
it said.
that's that article's opinion
That's
and
what I
not
said.
scientific
That's
fact.
what- that's what we're
and
saying.
the point is, the man won the election because he was able to connect with all people, not just people that actually felt that they were left behind, that no one was listening to them, that no one was speaking to them, that no one cared if they had food on the table or money in their wallet or they could put gas in their car or they were coal mine workers that were getting put out of work. So they said, well, this guy's listening to me, so I'm going to pay attention to him.
Who
and give
won
him
the
a chance.
popular vote?
Who's president of the United States? Here we go again.
That's like saying the
So did Al
football team got the
Everything
most
Al Gore
yards.
did.
So did
Oh,
Al Gore.
look at this. Years later, with regret, an admission. Al Gore
So
should be
you
president.
Obviously,
and
he won
Hillary
the
can
popular
I'm comparing
co-author
Juan
a
Williams.
book.
I'm comparing you to
Yeah.
ISIS.
ISIS.
If you could compare.
Juan Williams and Hillary
Yeah, you don't wanna
Clinton, they
take
can
it serious.
co-author a book. We still don't know what happened.
That's
We
right.
still don't get it.
All right. Ahead. An incomprehensible interview with the most ungrateful father in America.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when CNN defends President Trump for more than 20 minutes, that something or someone has completely gone off the rails. That someone is the father of one of those 3 UCLA basketball players who the president helped free from China after they shoplifted. Those young men are extremely lucky. Mr. Trump helped them evade punishment. But LiAngelo Ball's father, LeVar, doesn't see it that way.
It wasn't like he was in the U.S. and said, okay, there's 3 kids in China, I need to go over there and get them.
Okay.
That wasn't the thought process.
All right,
Okay.
right. You seem to have doubts about what the president did.
No, I don't have no doubts about what he did. I got doubts of what he didn't do. I would say thank you if he would have put him on his plane and took him home. Then I would have said, thank you, Mr. Trump. There's a lot of room on that plane. I would have said thank you kindly for that.
Sense
man,
why you won't
Did
thank
you thank the doctor? Did you thank the doctor for bringing you into this world? Well, you better go back and find him because you lucky. Tell Donald Trump to have a great Thanksgiving because Big Baller is.
I mean, there are no words.
Wow, this guy's kind of a joke, Gutfeld. I just like watching. Watching Cuomo's reaction.
No, I mean, okay, when we used to watch Trump during the debates, we were laughing throughout the whole thing because he was having fun. This guy and Trump, they're brothers from another mother. This guy is having a good time.
Literally.
He's done two great things. He made CNN fun for once, and he made Chris Cuomo interesting. I mean, how can you not love him? Of course, and that line about do you thank the doctor? That's priceless.
That was pretty much.
And by the way, this is comedy of a country in good times. The fact that you can like everybody keeps talking about this coming apocalypse under Trump. We wouldn't have time for this. This is actually a nice thing. I think it's fun. You put those two guys together, it would be pretty hilarious.
Yeah, that guy was on the WWE, so was Donald Trump. They have a lot in common, Dana.
I'm going to be on the WWE
Let's
in a
spin on
couple
itself.
weeks. Yeah, stay tuned for that.
Oh, boy.
But just imagine for a moment. I'm joking. I'm not really.
Oh, thank
but
God.
imagine the coverage for just a moment, if you will. If President Trump had not intervened for these three athletes, okay? You see a lot of people on Twitter complaining that the president attacks black athletes on Twitter, but he doesn't go after any white athletes. And why is that? But just imagine if he had not intervened and asked President Xi to let these three go. The coverage, the stories, it would be a very different story on CNN.
Quite the double standard.
And here. I mean, it would
Wouldn't
just
that
be
have been
different.
one?
Yeah, but I don't understand why this guy gets so much attention. I mean, so to me, the question was, why did CNN put this guy on the air and give him so much time?
Probably
Wait a
gave him a
minute.
great rating.
That's what
was
people
fun.
said all last year. Why do you
About
think
Donald Trump?
Yes.
CNN.
Okay. Well, you know what? Point well taken. I have to cede that point. But I think this guy is such a self-promoter, right?
Yeah.
With his $400 sneakers and I mean, it's so ridiculous. Here's the problem for me, Greg. He wasn't even making sense.
But you know what? He was making sense in a different level.
Oh, is that
was
it?
nonsense, which is what I do every day.
Oh,
He's
stop.
just doing what I do
Wow,
every day.
you're going to compare yourself to
Yeah,
him?
I'm staying with you, man.
Do you think the father's trying to divert a little bit of attention because his son really got caught up in a huge international problem? This is an international incident.
I don't know. He doesn't seem to be so concerned about his son because he's trying to be the jokester and get attention for himself. And I mean, I don't know that there's some, really well-developed plan here.
You think he's winging it?
I think he's winging it, Jesse, and trying to just say, whatever. And he likes probably the attention and President Trump hitting back at him. And so for him, this is like fun. He's like, this is the best.
Yep.
They
He's like,
did-
go buy my
And
shoes.
playing
They
around with
deserve
Chris
each
Cuomo.
other.
All right. Ahead, more controversy surrounding the Washington Redskins. Was it a sick private joke for the league to have the team host a home game on Thanksgiving? Well, that's what one critic alleges. Up next.
G6 like a G6. Like a G6.
This need a one dance. Got a Hennessy in my hand. One more time, but I go.
On Thursday, my favorite football team in the NFL will host its first ever Thanksgiving game in the nation's capital. That's fired up the sports editor of The Nation. He, like me, views the Washington football team's current name as a racist slur. Dave Zirin writes, quote, the Redskins slur, a name that exists only because of genocide and displacement, will have center stage. It's as if NFL owners, by having Washington host this game, are having their own private joke. A league that celebrates racial slurs can never be an engine for social justice. Now I turn to my sports bro here, Jesse. What do you think? Is this a legitimate argument for coming from Dave Zirin?
I didn't know the Nation had a sports writer.
Yeah, they do.
But doesn't matter what you call them, they're going to lose anyway, Juan. I'm sorry to,
How can
break
they
that to you.
Wait a minute. The Giants are 2-8. They're
I'm
the
an
opponent.
Eagles fan.
Yeah, but I'm
so
just saying they would
doesn't
lose to the
matter.
Eagles. I don't know if they.
So wait a
lose.
second.
Win
One,
no
one, one.
matter who
You're
plays.
disgusted by the term Redskins, but
Right.
you're okay with Giants, who are hey, look, here's a big person. Let's call him a Giant.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the Indians,
is he
Juan?
offended?
Baseball? You
Yes,
don't like that
that's
either?
his way of telling you that he's feeling a little emotional about it. and
About
offended.
Giants.
Yes, because,
Actually, I do agree with one. I do think the Washington name is bad. I think it's a bad name. But you don't have to be in this two idea prison. You can agree that the name is bad and still have a game on Thanksgiving.
Sure, but
You
I
know?
think Dave Zirin was making the case, Dana, that that the kind of the league is just laughing at the
Well,
public.
I don't know how they choose who's going to play on Thanksgiving, but I can't imagine that they sat around going, "Oh, I know
Yeah.
what we'll
Let's
do.
stick it to
Let's
them."
make
I don't
sure the Redskins are
Yeah.
playing on Thanksgiving to stir up more controversy, like they need more controversy at
Right.
the NFL." I don't think that's what happened. I think it must have been random, right?
I don't know. They've never done it before. Usually it's like what the Cowboys, and the
Cowboys.
Lions.
Yes.
Yeah, Lions
That's
play
who always
somebody.
Aren't they
plays.
playing
God,
as well?
and this is your sports
Well-
guy. I know more than he does. This is a joke.
Hey, you putting him down now?
No, I'm just saying. I mean, just because he's a guy.
Listen to the 49ers fan talk over there.
No,
Okay. No.
listen.
Well,
What?
hey, Jesse, let's go to the expert.
Yeah,
Let's go to the expert. What do you
Yeah.
think of this? Is this a legitimate controversy or something ginned up by the left?
I think that this is not a legitimate controversy, and I don't think anybody is worked up over the Redskins playing on Thanksgiving or really thinks, except for like some few like far left crazies, they know who they are, because no one cares about this. And one of the last polls taken, it was like 9 in 10 Native Americans said they're not offended by the Washington Redskins name, according to the Washington Post poll. So who exactly is worked up? You're worked up?
Well, I am worked up. I don't get worked up about it though, because like you said, like Dana said, I'm just not a conspiracy theorist. So they're playing, you know.
I'd worry more about how they're
this
gonna
woman,
play.
I must say that Dave Zirin quoted people from the Morningstar Institute, you know, representing Native Americans, and they don't like it. But you know, this voice has been heard. I will say maybe it'd be more interesting if we had like Jerry Jones versus Roger Goodell. That would be a hell of a
Or you know
game.
what's more interesting than football? Fox News, which we are having a special episode of The Five on Thanksgiving. Why are we
Yes.
even... Fox News does not take a knee on Thanksgiving.
No.
We will only take a
Absolutely.
knee if there's an injured puppy whose owners voted for Trump. That's when we'll take a knee to lift up the injured puppy.
And
All
give
right,
it
one more thing is up
comfort.
next.
Can bet as sure as you live. Something's gotta give, something's gotta give, something's gotta give.
All right.
It's time now for one more thing. Greg.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Delight us.
You look smashing in red. Am I allowed to say that these
No,
days?
you are not.
All right.
We'll allow it.
If I do it in an accent, perhaps? Greg's Game Show News. All right, this is a Japanese game show. Let's take a look at this. I'll give a little voiceover for you here. Very exciting. The contestants have to climb a slippery set of stairs. But it's as slippery as Al Franken's unwanted tongue. And they have to- It's unwanted. Anyway, footage is taken from the October
analogy was
26th
unwanted.
edition of, it's the biannual Japanese show All-Star Thanksgiving. This is the right way to do Thanksgiving, in which celebrities participate.
I think that we should do this next
This guy
week,
actually
the
wins,
five
though.
of us.
If you notice, he wins. He learned how to do it. You got to go really, really slow.
And on all
And then you
fours.
get it. There you go.
We got the money.
Yes. He can live. See, if you get that, you live. Everybody else in that game show died,
And
executed.
serious.
And that's the way everyone should spend Thanksgiving. Perfect. Is that what you did when
That's
Dana
what I-
just invited you?
Yes.
All
dare
righty,
you.
then. It's a true story. Juan?
Well, this one's barbaric, but I gotta say,
That wasn't.
it's entertaining. At last night's NFL football game, NFL Hall of Famer Steve Young grabbed a raw fish from a bed of rice, and well, see for yourself.
Why?
Oh!
That's his impression of Al Franken.
Why?
Oh my God!
Disgusting.
He bit the head off of the live fish and then spit it out.
what?
Yuck!
Why?
But the crowd loved it. The crowd cheered.
That's
And
awful.
Although it may have been a gesture in honor of the Seahawks, the Seattle football team, unfortunately it didn't work. In this game of predatory birds, Seahawks versus Atlanta Falcons, victory went to the Falcons. Dana, that's your way of
Obviously,
figuring
that's
out.
the
This is what
Where's
happens
PETA?
to former
Where is PETA?
49er
At home.
quarterbacks. I don't know what's going on here. Stay strong, Joe Montana. That's all I've got to say. All right. It's time for something really important. Kimberly's dating tip.
Ah, here we go.
Oh, indeed, indeed. And good thing I'm wearing red.
Keep it clean.
All right. Yeah. Women are more content being single than meeting men like Greg. This is a new study, I'm kidding, out of England, Greg, that shows that women are generally happier being single than men are. Okay? Feast on those numbers. 61 to whatever that is. I can't read. 49.
49.
All right. Also, 75% of single women have chosen to not pursue a relationship in the past year versus just 65% of single men. Why, you may ask?
Wow.
The study says one reason that single women are better at creating support groups to discuss their thoughts and feelings, and men find it difficult to be open. I think that's probably
This
guys
might
are
not be
single?
good for the human race.
so. Without a partner,
Good
they have
point.
no one to talk to about their issues. What do you think about
Single, ready to mingle. That's what that proved.
that? Okay, that only proves that men are single, ready to mingle. But you participated and paid attention to only
misread
half
the
of
poll.
the study.
I think that men are going to have to step it up.
All right.
Well, it's almost Christmas. I'm single and ready to jingle.
Oh, my God.
You don't do
Wow.
you celebrate that holiday?
No,
Wow,
I don't.
you use that line elsewhere?
Keep your jingle to yourself.
All right, I
Stay
got
on
something.
it.
This could
How
be,
dare you?
This could be the all-time political pivot, okay, in an interview. So last week, Australia became the 25th country to legalize same-sex marriage. And Bob Katter, he's a member of the Australian Parliament, he was asked about it this week, but he seemed like he didn't really want to talk about it. Watch.
I mean, you know, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities. You know, I mean, let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned. You know, but I ain't spending any time on it because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
Okay, no one knows what he's
Honestly, that was like ridiculous, right?
Okay, President
Crocodiles.
Trump issued some pardons today. Let's take a look.
Okay. Drumstick, you are hereby pardoned.
Yes, Drumstick and Wishbone were the turkeys, and Drumstick gets the pardon. Hopefully, that's the last pardon the president has to issue.
So what are they going to do now?
They go live a nice, happy life on a farm.
That's not true. This is all a lie.
until you need one.
Did he say thank you?
All right.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
Barbara will step in as the spokesperson for Drumstick. Cedric DVR's never missed an episode of The Five. Special report up next. Brett, take it away.
Juan with the killer line.
Thanks, Kimberly. I like Greg's Thanksgiving game show. Busy news day today.
Yeah.